Hello, this is CurtisCroweThePhotoPro here, and today we're going to talk about the light meter for more advanced users. If you saw my last video, you would have seen how you can use the light meter to your advantage for a basic user. Now, when you're more advanced, you're going to learn that you can't always go off your light exposure meter. So we're going to show you an example of where your light exposure meter lies to you, and you can still compensate for it. So let's go ahead and get started. So when we go ahead and take a look at this, and we're going to set it to perfect exposure according to the camera. So according to the camera, let's see here, that is perfect exposure. We're at ISO 2000. We are at aperture f4.5 and 1/60th of a frame. So as you can tell here, the image is way too bright. The reason why it's showing up too bright is because the exposure meter can't compensate for the wireless flash that is set up. The camera doesn't know where the flash is or even what the settings are because it's not an ETTL flash. Even if it was, it can still throw off your light meter quite a bit. Now what we're going to do this time is we're going to adjust for it. Now when you look at the image, the background looks great. It's perfect white. That's what we want. But again, the foreground is too bright. But by how much? I'm looking at this and I'm going to say it's about a stop over. So we are going to take this and we're going to shoot it at one stop under. Now I don't like where the ISO is at, so I'm going to lower the ISO first because ISO is what causes grain. So let's go ahead and take the shot again, and this is just going to be a hair under. Now when we look at this, this looks dramatically better. The background's still white, the subject looks beautifully exposed, very sharp detail. Now if I wanted to play around with this a little bit more, I could adjust my depth of field if I didn't want all that blurry stuff. But if you just look at what's in focus, there is a lot of detail there and everything looks like it's properly exposed. If you cropped it in where you couldn't even see the white background, no one would be able to tell that it's over or underexposed because the subject, which is the thing that matters, is properly exposed. This is important because if you're ever doing portraits, a lot of times people don't expose properly for the subject to really get the detail in their eyes. It's the same thing here. We want to get the details in the plant, so we have to adjust for it. So because that flash is giving us pretty much a stopover what we want for proper exposure, we have to be smart enough to look at the meter, go, okay, yeah, you're wrong. I know what's right. But use your meter as a reference point. For example, when we took a look at that light exposure meter and we saw it was perfect exposure but it was too bright, but we looked at the subject and said it was one stop over, we were able to use the exposure meter to make sure that we only dropped it by a stop. Now in my book that I'm writing, we go into the details of exactly how much you need to adjust when you're a stop over, two stops over, or whatever. In this example, I'll give you a little piece of free information. Dropping your ISO from 2000 to 1000 is exactly one stop of light. That being said, even without the light exposure meter, I could figure it out. It would just take trial and error. But if you're still trying to get the hang of your exposure triangle and you're still trying to get the hang of how much you need to compensate for your light exposure meter, this is a great guide. So I hope it was informational for you. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any tips or suggestions for the channel. If this helped you out, hit that like button. Again, this has been Curtis Crowe, the Photo Pro. As I always do, toodles. And that is invaluable. And I really wish every Canon camera had Wi-Fi because that has been worth its weight in gold for me. And causes a blur effect from whenever that shutter opens to whenever it closes. Everything that moved in that moment is now captured as motion.
800 on this photo. I mean, we wanted to, but I feel like that's too harsh and that's going to do a disservice to the photo.